All right, so today we're going to deep dive into Ukraine's bid to join NATO.
Okay.
Um, and this is obviously a pretty bold move by Ukraine, given
Ah,
everything that's going on
yeah.
with the war with Russia, North Korea getting involved, weapons testing. There's a lot going on here.
Right.
And it seems like it could have pretty massive consequences globally.
Totally.
So let's unpack all this.
Sure. Yeah. I think to get started, we probably need to look at why Russia is so sensitive about Ukraine possibly joining NATO.
Okay, yeah, that's a good place to start.
Yeah. So Russia sees NATO expanding closer and closer to its borders as a direct threat.
Hmm.
They view it as encroachment on what they see as their sphere of influence. So
Right.
bringing Ukraine into NATO would be a huge problem for them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So basically, they're trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that kind of leads into what happened just recently, like a few days ago, that massive attack that Russia launched
Okay.
on November 27th and 28th. I mean, that was the largest single attack that they've done so far in this conflict.
Huge. Yeah.
And they were going after Ukraine's energy infrastructure,
Yeah.
missiles, drones, everything they got.
Yeah. And the timing right before winter, that's not a coincidence.
Oh, absolutely not.
It's a really brutal tactic, trying to knock out essential services and demoralize the Ukrainian people.
Right.
Just think about it. No power freezing temperatures, just a terrible situation.
And I mean, Ukraine did manage to shoot down 90% of those missiles and drones with their air defenses.
That's amazing. Yeah,
Still, the ones that got through did a lot of damage.
of course.
And there's the human cost, too. The UN is reporting a 45% increase in civilian casualties over the past few months.
That's awful.
It just shows you that this isn't just some kind of political game.
No.
These are people's lives we're talking about.
Exactly. And that's what makes Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba's appeal to NATO so important. His letter was a really powerful call to action. I mean, he's urging NATO to invite Ukraine to join right now.
Wow.
He says that's the best way to stop Russia from attacking even more.
And he even said, I'm quoting here, "We believe that the invitation should be extended at this stage. It will become the Allies' adequate response to Russia's constant escalation of the war it has unleashed." So you can hear the urgency there.
For sure.
So what would actually happen if NATO did extend that invitation right now? What would that mean?
Well, it would be a total game changer. I mean, NATO is the military alliance, right? So
Yeah.
if they offered Ukraine membership, basically while they're in the middle of this war with Russia,
Yeah.
it would show how much they support Ukraine, and it would send a really strong message to Moscow. It would be like saying, we're here for you. Don't mess with them.
A bold move.
Definitely bold.
But I thought NATO already said that Ukraine was on an irreversible path to membership. So why are they holding back on actually inviting them?
Yeah, well, it's complicated. NATO may want Ukraine to join, but all 32 member countries have to agree on it.
Oh, wow. Okay, so.
Yeah, and, with a decision this big, there are a lot of discussions and internal politics going on behind the scenes.
So it seems like this upcoming NATO foreign ministerial meeting on December 3rd and 4th could be a really big deal.
Yeah, for sure. It's a turning point.
Like we're all kind of waiting with bated breath to see what happens.
Right.
So what could this all mean for the rest of the world? Like what are the different outcomes depending on what NATO decides?
Well, it's a big deal either way. If Ukraine gets invited to join NATO, it could totally change the balance of power in Europe.
Right.
Russia might see it as NATO provoking them directly, and that could lead to even more fighting. But on the other hand, if NATO says no to Ukraine, well, then Russia might be encouraged to act even more aggressively in the region. It's really a tough situation. No easy answers.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about.
It is.
So to recap, we have this really urgent situation in Ukraine, their bold move to try to join NATO, a powerful and very aggressive Russia, and a really important NATO meeting coming up in just a few days. And this story isn't over yet.
And we can't forget that there are real people at the center of this story.
Right.
Millions of people whose lives are affected by all this.
As we try to understand what's happening and what it all means, what is like one big question we should all be asking ourselves?
I think the big question is, what do we want the future of global security and international cooperation to look like?
That is a big question.
Yeah, this war in Ukraine shows how fragile peace can be, and it really shows how important it is to have good leaders on the world stage.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for breaking all this down with me.
Of course, my pleasure.
And thank you to all our listeners for joining us for this deep dive.
Yes, thanks for listening.
We'll keep you updated on this developing situation.
Absolutely, we'll be back.
Until then, stay informed and stay engaged.
Take care, everybody.